Hey guys, it's Jenny Silver, and today I want to talk to those of you in the state of California who are collecting unemployment benefits with the California EDD. Many of you are having trouble getting through to the phone lines. The customer service lines at the California EDD continue to be extremely difficult to get through at most times of the day, during most days of the week. Many claimants are becoming extremely frustrated, and many claimants, after dialing repeatedly over and over again, are now turning to third-party services, which offer for a fee to call the EDD for you and then call you back once it reaches a hold line. I want to investigate for you today one specific company called Claimyr. If you have been trying to get through to the unemployment phone lines, you most likely have heard this company shared on Reddit, on my own channel, in various blogs, resources, and they were featured recently in the news. There's a service where you pay a flat rate, you enter in your phone number and your state, and then their service will call you back when they have an EDD hold line ready for you. It allows you to get through to a hold line to get help with your claim without having to redial over and over again. If it's disconnected for any way, then one big benefit of using Claimyr is that it will provide you with free callbacks for the next 24 hours. So if your call is dropped for any reason, such as being transferred over to Tier 2 and having the call disconnected, which is quite common, then what Claimyr does is it texts you immediately following the call and asks you if you had success in connecting. If you did not have success, then it asks you if you would like to be connected again. Claimyr was created by its CEO, Thomas Maxon, while he was collecting unemployment after his business went down during the pandemic. While he was trying to get through to the EDD to fix his payments, he grew extremely frustrated with the process.
Claimyr started when I was trying to solve my pending issues with this ID verification snafu back in July. I was basically in pending since March, and I called, I think, 500 times in a week, and I just was simply not able to get through. I think everybody's been in that position. So I threw together something called an API, which is a computer program that calls for me. And I don't know how to code, and it was my little side project to teach me how to code. I actually got a call back from EDD, which was a truly magical feeling. Then I took it to another community member in one of these Facebook groups, and then we had some back and forth direct messaging, and then she said, "Wow, this is unbelievable. How'd you do this?" I was like, "Oh, it's just a side project." And then she's like, "Okay, I'm gonna Venmo you like $50." I was like, "No, we're not gonna take your money for this." And we didn't for like 6 or 7 months, basically until January. So, but every user, every person who talked to us, like, just really felt it was like very, like, it was amazing. So we felt like maybe, if there's enough people out there that really need this, then maybe we can actually use this to, help other people.
Now, you guys have had extremely strong opinions about this company one way or the other. For those of you that chose to pay into using this service and were able to use it to call into EDD, your feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. The video comments on my first video that I created testing this service show a vast number of you that chose to purchase this service, and your feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. But on the flip side of that positivity, there are also many of you that feel, number one, that this company should not exist, that it is a predatory company. Number two, that it is a scam and you are concerned about them taking your personal information. Number three, that they are log jamming the EDD phone lines and making it impossible to get through for those who do not purchase. And number four, that it is causing a greater divide between those who are able to afford the service and those who cannot. Now, for my previous video and for this video as well, the link that I'm sharing for Claimyr is an affiliate link. And what that means is that it is a link that I've taken from the company that allows you to get a discount of $5 on your first call and me to receive a commission on sales made from that link. I think it's important to address that I am not sponsored by this company. There's a difference between an affiliate link and a sponsorship. If I were to take a sponsorship from Claimyr, it would mean that I would enter into a contract with them, have a certain agreement to present their company in a certain way with very specific talking points, and I would not be able to say anything negative about their company. In exchange for that, I would then receive a lump sum. Now, while Claimyr did offer to sponsor me, I did turn away a sponsorship from them because I did not want to have what I say be hindered by restrictions from a contract. I wanted to be able to present information to you guys on an objective level, which addresses your concerns so that I'm able to show you from a consumer standpoint and as a business owner exactly what information I'm able to find about this company. Now, because many of you have these concerns about this company, and because I have been sharing an affiliate link for it, I wanted to dig in deep and see what I could find on each one of these concerns for you guys. This video isn't intended to sway your opinion one way or another, to tell you to do something or to not. It's simply to present you with all of the information available, and then you can make the decision that is best for you, your own situation, and your own opinion of the company. The first thing I intended to do was to investigate the legitimacy of the company. Is this in fact a real company, or is it a scam? Are they doing things by the book, or is it someone who's going to run off with your money and personal information? Now, before I ask Claimyr directly for any information, I wanted to see what I could find myself online. Now, when you first Google the company name, the very first thing that pops up is a photo of a San Francisco home. This was a red flag for some of you who were worried that this was simply someone who is not a legitimate business that was trying to scam you. First up, it's important to understand that as a business owner, not all businesses will be operating out of a separate office building. Many businesses will need to start off as a home-based business, including tech startup companies. So for me as a business owner and a business coach, seeing a home-based business pop up in Google was not a red flag to me. However, for many of you that aren't used to businesses being started in a home and home-based businesses, this may have seemed alarming to you. Now, the next step was for me to see if Thomas Maxon, the CEO, had a registered company to this address. Now, I went over to the Secretary of State's business search tool. I searched for this specific address and for the company, and what I found was the Secretary of State filing for Thomas Maxon, who is the CEO of Claimyr. You can see their Secretary of State filing here listed as Block Type Inc. You can see Thomas Maxon listed as the CEO. While this is a registered business, you'll notice the name is different, Block Type Inc. and Claimyr. Now, when I didn't see them listed in the county clerk recorder's listings, I contacted the CEO. I let him know that I was unable to find Claimyr referenced as a registered business, but I did find his other incorporation.
In February, I left my previous company to start my own company here. Before Wuhan, before I really knew this would enter the United States, and we were helping financial institutions like Square and JP Morgan, all of these types of institutions be able to get compliant access to digital assets. And we were creating just an analytics framework for that. Problem is the VCs that I was talking to literally ran for the hills to Tahoe. And they basically thought it was a black swan event. All the capital basically vanished for about 3 or 4 months. So I had $300 to my name. I had to do something. So I applied for unemployment benefits. I suddenly realized, wow, this problem is across the country. We can build and we can truly help people with software within this spot, and then potentially even make a business out of this. So we pivoted into a much more exciting opportunity rather than just dealing with banks. And we didn't really think about the perception, like going from Block Type Inc. On the websites and on Google to Claimyr.com, but we did officially change our name to Claimyr.com.
Change has been filed. It now reflects Claimyr Inc. And Thomas was actually able to provide me with a copy of the paperwork that he filed. If you're nosy like me and you're trying to snoop around on the Secretary of State's website, however, it is not loaded there yet due to a processing delay, which the Secretary of State notes on their website. To provide additional information to me, Thomas also sent over the name of his attorney and the name of his bank that his business does their banking with. So I was able to identify that yes, they are a legitimate business according to the legal paperwork that they have on file with the state of California. who is representing them in terms of law firm and bank, but will they be able to scam you? Will they be able to take personal information from your call with the EDD? When you call the EDD, you have to give them some sensitive information, including your social security number. Now, many subscribers have been concerned that there could be some way that there is a three-way call and that someone from their company is listening in and collecting data. Individuals are concerned about giving their sensitive information out over the phone to an EDD representative while they are utilizing a third-party call system. They're worried about the possibility of someone listening into their call, possibility of a three-way call, or someone in some way stealing their sensitive information, such as their social security number, their customer account number, etc. How can they feel secure in using this service? Is there any way that their information could be compromised?
Yeah, that's a completely valid question. And we're going to settle this right now. We don't listen to the conversations. We don't want that burden. We're not in the business of stealing identities. It's not a very good business model. If we listen to those conversations, we would have to store that data in a very highly secure fashion. And that incurs compliance costs, security costs, all those extra things. We simply don't do that. And second of all, it's not a conference call. A conference call means you're actually creating a central hub where multiple parties can come into the call. That simply is technologically not what's happening.
Okay.
What's happening is when we get EDD to actually call us back, we get in touch, we just simply route that call to the person and send it back to our phone. And so we're not on the call. It's not a three-way call. It's not a conference call.
Next, I wanted to address the concern that you guys are having that Claimyr is log jamming the phone lines. I wanted to ask Thomas exactly how Claimyr works, exactly how many calls are placed, and if it is something that is causing the problem to get worse with jamming the EDD phone lines even more with an automated system calling in.
So we use a software as a service platform called Twilio.com. And Twilio.com is they IPO'd a couple years ago. They're based out of here in San Francisco. They're a gold standard in telecommunications. And we use their computer software to place calls to EDD's number, which is 833-978-2511.
If it does get through to that 2511 phone number, what specific menu options did you program into this, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, don't mind. It's, we have gone through the same, we're actually using the same, there's no other way to circumvent that phone menu. So you press 1 for English or 2 for Spanish, then you wait a minute and 20 seconds-ish, and then you press, 2 or 1 to actually get into, because you have a claim, and then 2 to actually talk to an agent, and then 1, you have to wait like 19 seconds, and you press 1.
Okay.
So we're actually doing the same waiting time as a human would, but we're just able to do it very, very efficiently, because a human might take 5 seconds one time longer than it might take a couple seconds earlier. So having a computer, this is perfect for a computer program rather than just dialing over and over again.
A big concern that people are having is that using an auto dial service such as yours is going to log jam the phone lines, that it's making more calls at a faster rate, or that it's somehow saving spaces in the line in advance and jamming up the phone lines and, in a sense, making the problem worse. Subscribers phrased it as they're jamming the phone lines and then selling our spaces back to us. How would you respond to something like that? And do you think that that is a problem with using an auto dialing service?
Yeah, when I first started, we did have an auto dial bot for my own claim that I think I placed maybe 1,000 calls to get through. And I realized very quickly, so that whole process cost me $500. We quickly realized that if we gave everybody access to if everybody had access to 1,000 calls per hour or per minute, it would cannibalize everybody else who's using Claimyr. So our costs would rise incrementally. So what we did is we keep people on a wait list, and then we have one dialer that basically calls. So the more users we have, the more efficient it gets, to the point where we're placing maybe 10 to 20 calls per person rather than thousands of calls. So the way typical auto dialers work is that each person gets access to like a bazooka or a rocket launcher of auto dial technology, and they can place as many calls as the auto dial service can actually give. And that is a huge problem. But there's no incentive for us to do that, because that every person placing a call would then compete against other people placing the same call. And then our costs would just rise and our business would just implode.
That makes sense.
So we had to build this in an efficient way. And I think a good analogy is to think about it like the 101 or I-80 during rush hour. Everybody has their mobile phone or in their car or cars, right? And you have like 4 or 5 empty seats. It's so inefficient, and people are just calling over and over again. We're like a bus on the carpool lane. We put everybody into a queue, and then we call for them. So a lot more people can fill within our particular space than if they would be calling on their own or using an auto dial bot. Okay. An auto dial bot is basically like everybody getting cheap access to a car and then, congesting these lanes. So we think that this is a pretty efficient system, and the efficiency for us is efficiency for everybody who's not using Claimyr as well. I know that sounds kind of roundabout way, but I think it's really important to understand the way that we design this is to do that. Now, second thing, we never call ahead of the users.
Okay, that was one of my big questions is there some way that you are configuring it so that you are kind of on hold with EDD in advance, and you're not?
Yeah, that's it's somewhat of a subtle thing, but the more you think about it, the more you realize how unethical that is. We only initiate calls when a person wants to place a call.
Okay.
So we could potentially call ahead of time, then put everybody on hold and then resell those calls. That would be borderline. That would probably be illegal. Yeah. And we simply don't do that. And frankly, why would we do that? Because there's a huge risk that what if we don't have customers, right? And what if it goes into some sort of bidding war where it's basically people can raise and bid and increase the price that they want to get to EDD with. So we don't do that. We only place calls by proxy when somebody wants to place a call.
Average, how many calls per person using Claimyr does Claimyr place into EDD's phone line?
Yeah, so on non-busy days like Fridays and Saturdays, Sundays, it's probably around 10 calls per person. They could probably call on their own phone on those days. On Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, it's around 30 to sometimes 60 calls, depending on how busy EDD is on average per person. Now, we're not placing 60 calls for those people. We're placing a single line of calls, and how many users we have, we basically give an average. So that's between 30 to 60 on busy days, or 10 to 20 on non-busy days.
Thomas was able to send me over a screenshot from their Twilio account, which shows all of their data on how many calls were placed and how many users they had. On Tuesday, May 4th, which is one of their busier days of the week, they had 1,459 customers. For those 1,459 customers, there was a grand total of 45,072 total calls placed. That means that for each single customer using Claimyr, an average of 31 calls were placed into the EDD's phone line in order to get that caller through.
Next, I wanted to address those of you that feel as if this is a predatory company, that this company may be taking advantage of or preying on individuals who are at a very sensitive point in their lives and in their financial situation.
Concern that people are having is that for those who are able to pay a fee, they're kind of referring to it as cutting the line if they're able to pay the price tag. And for those individuals who have absolutely nothing, who can't spare that $15 even on a credit card because things are maxed out due to their problems with the EDD, what is your response to kind of the critique that your company may be either a predatory company, kind of using those people who are in a sensitive period financially to profit off of, or that your company may be something that is kind of greatening the divide between those who cannot afford or access these additional services due to a financial strain?
I've been there. I had basically I was on dire straits myself. We're trying as best we can to give free callback options, reducing the price, reducing our costs by negotiating with Twilio. And I do think over time, the goal here is not to make, a $1 billion company off of phone calls to EDD. The idea here is to truly try and help people and lower that cost as much as possible. I know that's a roundabout way of doing it and answering your question. I do know for a fact that because we're placing less calls than people would normally place if they were calling on their phone. So we see this all the time in the communities. I've called hundreds of times in a day. And I can't get through. I've called for months and weeks. I can't get through. Well, they're calling hundreds of times a day, if not thousands of times per week. But the average user is placing 30 calls through us, right? So if they're placing 30 calls through us and they're just waiting a little bit longer, then it gives the people who cannot afford this more breathing room to place more calls. So basically, the trade-off is between calls versus time. And so if people are willing to wait and guaranteed callback in maybe an hour to 2 hours, then that gives, and we're only placing 10 to 30 calls per person. The people who can't afford it, and we understand there's a lot out there, they are not competing against people who are placing hundreds of calls per time. So we do think that by creating an efficient system where everybody's in a mass transit kind of way, and they just wait a little bit longer, then the other people who are, driving their own cars, for example, have more lanes and they have much more, freedom to drive or to call, to use my analogy there. But, these are long-term issues that we really have to address, and we have to really think about how to make this accessible to everybody. That's the goal. And yes, we do charge for this and we're aware of that, but yeah, we're trying to do as much as we can to lower the costs and free call. We think, how we're going to be able to try and make this out. Ideally, we want to move to the point where when people get their benefits, then they can perhaps pay back. We ran a few experiments actually for 6 months where I was using the 20,000, I think, from my backdated, where I gave basically people free access, unlimited access, and they said they would pay back because they were just trying to get access. And unfortunately, those people disappeared, all of them. They just didn't ever, we incurred thousands of dollars of fees on their behalf. But we do think we can build in a very equitable way where maybe people don't have to pay so much up front and then maybe perhaps a bit over time. The problem is here with this is that we're using Twilio, which is a very expensive service. And the cost here is like, okay, do we shut down the app? Do we make it completely free? Or do we charge at cost? Then how do we actually then service the amount of people that need to use it? So it's a very, very tough dilemma. And I know we're actually, going into this very wide-eyed, we're very aware of these problems.
Okay, guys, so I hope that was a helpful compilation of resources in order to help you formulate your own opinion on this company. If you want to view the video where I test out the service, you can click the link in the video description down below, and you can view me use the service from start to finish. Okay, you guys, I hope that was helpful. Please click like, subscribe, and leave a comment.